Hello, my fellow patriots. This is Alex with another episode of Who Really Owns America, and this will be the finale. Um, and Belinda is dealing with weather at this moment. She's not going to quit her fight to try to get on, but for once, I have crystal clear blue skies. This is probably the first time in over a month and a half that I've had clear skies to shoot this signal through. Duke, good to see you. California Critic, uh, waved at you already. Pete, you're here. Glad everybody's here. Hey, History B. Belinda is in the background right now. I think she's probably hitting her phone with a hammer or something to that effect. But if if she can't get on here live, I told her, I said, it's no big deal. We can have her call the old trusty phone, and then I stick it up here next to the microphone like so, and you guys would be able to hear what she has to say. So there are ways around everything, but the reason that this is going to be the series finale of Who Really Owns America is quite literally because you reach a point where you've exposed all that you can, and with that exposure, we can hope we can make changes. It's a matter of dealing with our representatives. They're not our leaders; they are our employees. So we have to demand that they do the job that we ask them to do, and part of that is protecting our infrastructure and doing the will of the people. So that's what we can do. We can fight for it. But uh, glad women use a caveman technique on electronics too. Well, you do what you have to do. 12B Georgia, good to see you. Chris Link, welcome. Glad you guys are all here. Um, I'm gonna I'm kind of dragging out the open a little bit because I'm trying to give Belinda a chance here. Um, she's hitting buttons and probably doing vocabulary that would have to be censored for public consumption, but we're just letting her ease into it. I've got some interesting articles pulled up. One thing I wanted to bring to everybody's attention before I really started. Oh, Fred, man, that's going to leave a mark. Good Lord, that's like uh, that's like a speed bag effect right there. Man, no respect whatsoever. It's like love you, man. Oh, thank you. But anyway, so let me. I'm not going to get quite into the stuff we're going to talk about tonight until I'm sure that Belinda has had a futile attempt at joining us. But this is an article that I brought up. The first half of the show is really going to be the information that we have on oil companies and infrastructure in the U.S. that's owned by foreign companies. So we'll yes, she was a sailor. In fact, she was Navy. So she is a roughen and toughen sailor type. So anyway, so we're going to talk about that, but I want to talk about something here that I found on Parlor. If you guys look over on Parlor, I am on that now. It's like the new Twitter without all the twits. You get over there on Parlor, you got some decent headlines and articles and people to follow. I am definitely one of them. Um, as you know, Beto O'Rourke he's declared himself the warrior for the media. He says that the media is not the enemy of the people. If anything, they're the friend of the people, and they should be protected at all costs. Well, here's the headline: Beto O'Rourke, and screw that Beto Francis. He is not Hispanic. He is not Mexican. He is just he's white. But anyway, Francis O'Rourke ejects Breitbart news reporter from event at historically black college. It's it's okay until you get somebody that may not give you your talking points and your praises and your boot licking. Anyway, it says Columbia, South Carolina, former rep Francis O'Rourke, Democrat, Texas, has styled himself as a champion of press freedom, tweeting last October, "The press is not the enemy of the people, but the best defense against tyranny." And then I actually have to zoom that in because I don't think I did it yet, and the letters disappeared after the headline. Oh, look, there they are. It says, "It is now August, and with his poll numbers falling in the Democrat presidential primary," and it is Democrat, it's not democratic. There's nothing democratic about a socialist regime. But anyway, Democrat presidential primary, O'Rourke has decided that he is entitled to abuse members of the press who cannot be relied upon to provide favorable coverage. O'Rourke's campaign ejected the Breitbart news reporter from a speech at Benedict College, an historically black college, on Tuesday afternoon. So it's amusing. Everything is, it's all fine and dandy until stuff happens to them. The rules are different for both sides, and what can you do? But anyway, that's the start. That's them working on their own censorship. If it's not their controlled news outlets that do their bidding and coordinate their talking points and praise them when they're, I don't think, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that nobody in the Democrat side is polling above 20%, which, 20%, and then they put these people in these lineups and say, "Oh, well, this one will beat Trump by 4 points, this one will beat Trump by 7 points," and maybe I'm not that good at math, but if President Trump is up in the mid to high 70s with the Republican side, and the Democrats are in the 20s or less, I don't get how that math works up. So, Cheshire Cat, good to see you. All I can see is your eyes and smile, though. So, I guess that's part of the cat thing. But anyway, let me see. Let's do a live on-air call. How about that? That'll be fun, won't it? We're going to see if Miss Belinda wants to do this by telephone, because I don't want her to miss this, because this literally is the last episode of this Who Really Owns America. And after this, we're going to be changing the format of the show and doing a weekend review. So let's see if she's going to answer this, or she's probably going, no. Anyway, answer the phone, Belinda. It's me calling.
Please leave your message.
Please leave your message. She's back there going, okay. Let's see if she tries back. Anyway, so I'm trying to give her every opportunity she can to get here. So I don't want to necessarily start on this evening's events just yet, or this evening's information. But we is going to be talking about oil. So the oil tycoons. That's the subject of tonight's browbeating. I'm scrolling down through Parler right now, and doesn't look like there's anything that has popped up that's worth anything yet. Let me refresh and see what we get. Who else has jumped in here? Ronald Rodriguez, good to see you. Welcome. What's the count in my chat? I'm just curious. China Joe Walsh. Yeah, we're gonna be talking about Joe Walsh pretty soon. That's a pathetic excuse for a competitor for Trump. All he's trying to do is split the votes, take the take the critical votes away from Donald Trump and make it so that the left can win. Belinda no está aquí, señora. Yeah, I agree. She didn't answer. Let's try it again, shall we? This is fun. This is like my first call-in show, and I'm doing the call-in. Let's see if she'll answer. Imagine she's pretty tweaked right now. But sometimes you have to get your feathers ruffled so that you realize that you're still alive. Hello. Say hello to the audience.
Well, hello, everyone.
Now check that out. Okay. You are on the phone.
Oh, okay.
And I'm asking right now if you can be heard clearly. I'm waiting for a response, and then we'll see. I'm gonna make you a little header here, so that anybody that's coming in just now can understand that you are going to be on the phone. All right. Apparently, I misspelled your name, so that's good.
Oh.
It put the red line underneath it, so it's just telling me I spelled it wrong. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, joining us by phone is Miss Belinda. Say hello to everybody, Belinda.
Hello, everybody, Belinda.
No, you can leave the Belinda part off. You already had that covered.
Okay.
Well, this is our first call-in show. I'd like you to know that you're our first call-in. So this will be amusing. Okay.
I can't get the dog out because it's raining.
Oh, she's fine. Dogs are going to be dogs. I had the cat piled in my lap until right before I went live. So everybody's waving their hand and saying hello to you. Are you able to... you're not even able to pull up YouTube at this point to see this because your Wi-Fi is down, right?
Right. I don't think it connects when I'm just on, T-Mobile.
Okay.
That's all I have right now. And I was trying to download something else. I didn't answer the call the first time because I didn't want to kick it off. You
That's
called
fine.
me in and it kicked it off, so...
I'm sorry. You can hit me later.
Okay, I will.
Philip Turner says, "Hey, how are you, Belinda? Good to see you." He's out doing yard work. All right, so I already opened up with an article on Parler just to kill some time while I was trying to get you on here and get this figured out. But we, as you know, are going to be talking about all. So feed that dog some broccoli, woman.
Right? Okay, yeah, let me do that.
All right. It's we're going to be talking about the petroleum industry and who really owns it. And I wanted to start it off with basically a list of the companies that are American owned, and then we can start dissecting them as we go down through. ExxonMobil, Chevron Corporation, ConocoPhillips, Occidental Petroleum Company, Valero Industries.
I thought Valero was not American owned. I thought that was another one of the Venezuelan ones.
Well, that's the little tricky dicky part. This was January 22nd of 2019. And the reason I'm bringing up the American companies is because we're going to show in a minute that they are not, in fact, American companies. But I wanted to start out just by mentioning the ones they call American companies.
Okay.
Right now, okay, it has their market value. So ExxonMobil market value is $341.6 billion. And then you've got Chevron, which is 197.3 billion. I only need 1 or 2 billion. I'm not even greedy. But ConocoPhillips is 53.2 billion. Occidental Petroleum is at 44.8 billion. Vallejo Industries is 28.6 billion, and that's the that is the ones that are declared U.S. owned. Um, there are 10 others that are they're small companies, but like for example, one of them is Upstream Exploration and Production. Um, these are these are little, I guess you call them small companies, but anything that can drop kick $1 billion into a bank account isn't particularly small. But
True.
what?
I said true.
Yes, very well. I'll let you tell everybody what you've heard firsthand, and then we'll get into the breakdown of the American quote unquote companies.
Okay, well, I have a friend that's been in the oil industry all their adult life, and there's a lot of tension right now with within the community, and this person's in Texas, so I don't know about Louisiana or any of the other high producing states, but in Texas, there's a lot of unsettledness in the air. There are an inordinate amount of visits from Arabs in their private jets, getting off their private jets, touring, the facilities, having very high-profile meetings, and then leaving. And this person's worried that there is going to be some type of big shift. They're also seeing, and this is new stuff. This isn't, Arabs have always flown in, but it's the amount of people coming from the Middle East. And there's also, they're experiencing a lot of, I'm going to call them foreign travelers that hasn't happened before, that are flying in, they're having meetings with the big power players at these different refineries and different drill sites, and then they fly out on their jets and go about their way. So they're worried that we're about to lose even more stake in our U.S. oil production.
Well, you know that OPEC is like the grandfather of the oil industry, and they are like the UN of oil, and pretty much whatever they say has to be abided by all these other oil companies. They decide the cost of the per barrel rates. They do their speculation, and it's just like any other commodity. They screw with it up and down. Oh, Duke needs to get a smoke from me. Well, there you go. There you go. Anyway, also, I believe it was Cheshire Cat says yes. Cheshire Cat says broccoli makes dogs fart a lot. So just keep that in mind.
Mine don't. Mine are just fine.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yours are girl dogs. Girl dogs don't fart; they poop. But anyway, so whatever. I've been married for almost 30 years. I think I know the difference. Anyway, so what else can you tell us about that?
That's because I can't get on the World Wide Web.
Oh.
That's where everything is.
Well, just
my notes are on the computer, and I can't get the computer to on.
So your Wi-Fi's still down?
Yeah.
Somebody needs to lose their head for this.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Didn't they know we were doing this today?
Yeah, they have no respect. And I was just saying at the beginning of the show, this is like the first time in it's at least a month and a half that I've got a crystal clear blue sky to my south that I'm shooting my signal at. So, it's been every night just having these waves of storms come through, and it's been like trying to throw a dart into a donut. You're trying to get your signal out through in between these giant clouds, but it's frustrating. But you can't do anything about weather except for go thank you very much, so just smile and wave. That's all you can do.
Well, we did have a very bad storm, and a lot of things went out. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
guess I'm just waiting for that to come back. So
well, it's we haven't even started yet. What are we, 20 minutes in? And at any time you could get your stuff back and come popping in here in 3D and be in live in person. But until we get that, we're going to do the phone thing because I don't want you to be missing out on basically a series finale. Speaking of series finale, I was saying, now that you're here, I'll say it to you too, that when we start next week on this Tuesday night show, the format's going to be different, and it's not going to be Who Really Owns America. The new format is going to be a week in review. We're going to take some of the hardest hitting, in your face garbage that has been spewed by the people on the left, and we're going to break it down. We are going to be exposing the crazy. That's going to be our mission, and I think that's going to be our part that we're going to try to do to wake up some people to the hypocrisy and the idiocy of the left, and then that'll be our assisting in helping to get President Trump another 4 years. So
I'm excited about that. I'm excited.
you look excited. So
I know, right?
all right. So I want to breaking down. I just opened us up with the U.S. companies. Um, let's see. Assets in the U.S. that are owned or controlled by foreign governments face the conflict of serving the economic interests of the firm versus taking action that benefits the objectives of the foreign government. It's a little sketchy. Are we, when they own things here, are they owning them so that they can benefit their country, or are they trying to help us benefit ours? I think that answer is pretty obvious.
I don't feel any foreign anything wants to benefit the USA.
Yeah, it all seems to be a.
Because they have no, military infrastructure. Smaller countries would, but any of the power players, I don't think have any interest.
Yeah, it's sketchy at best. Uh, let's see. When is this article? It's going to July 19th, 2017. So this was a year and a month ago that this article came out. Some of this stuff has already been enacted, but the reason I brought up the article is because it shows a contradiction compared to the first thing I was talking about with the companies owned by the U.S. And it says, as of now, some 30%, or roughly 5 million barrels per day, of U.S. refining capacity is owned by foreign companies. So I think I mentioned, well, I think I told you, Belinda, that when a foreign company owns a U.S. oil rig and they pump barrels of oil out of the ground, if they sell that oil to the United States, they still sell it as an imported item, and you pay your import duties and taxes on it, even though it came out of the ground of the United States. So that's just something to think about.
That's stupid.
Yeah, it really is.
Just flat stupid.
Let's see. There are a number of foreign companies whose own U.S. downstream capacity don't necessarily raise eyebrows. These include Britain's BP, the Netherlands' Royal Dutch Shell, Israel's Delek, France's Total Mexican Premix JV with Shell, and Canadian Husky Energy, Petrobras Brazil's state-owned company known for rampant corruption, is considering selling its refinery in Texas. But ownership by the Saudis and Venezuela is another story, given that their companies have ties to their respective governments and by extension OPEC. Furthermore, their refineries prefer to purchase their own oil instead of U.S. products, crude. Saudi Saudi Aramco. Okay, Saudi Aramco under Motifa Enterprises fully owns the Port Arthur, Texas facility, the largest U.S. refinery at 600,000 barrels per day, and Venezuela's PDVSA has a 49.9% stake in Citco, which runs more than 700,000 barrels per day. The capacity at Port Arthur and Citco plants is configured to use heavy crudes such as those products in Saudi Arabia and Venezuela rather than light sweet shale. So they're bringing it up as crude and they're shipping it out that way, and they're choosing to do their thing with it in their own country. But it's interesting. They say something like they want to buy their own oil. Well, they're pulling it up out of the territory of the United States. So isn't that our oil? There, I don't get that.
Well, I don't remember what all Bush 2 was doing when it came to all the oil.
Pocketing the money.
I think this is something that was set in play a long time ago, and I know I missed it. I'm sure a lot of people did miss it, and I'm sure a lot of people were dialed right in. But
Right.
I missed all those little backroom things during that part of my life. I just wasn't on it.
Yeah.
Just wasn't paying attention.
It's amazing how much goes on in the world while we're doing little things called living life, and everything gets done behind our backs until all of a sudden we're sitting there going, wait a minute, what did I miss here? What happened?
Exactly. And I hope I'm not the only one that ever experiences that where,
I think that there's been a lot of complacency, and we can't help it because we have lives going on. People have jobs to do, they have families to take care of, and the government is fully aware of that. That's why they get away with the stuff, because they do it while everybody's busy doing their thing. If you're a leftist social justice warrior, you don't give a damn because you don't have anything else to do anyway. You get paid for your protests. But if you're people that work for a living, you just can't pay attention to everything. And I hope to God that that's part of the good thing about having us out here, is so that we can bring the stuff to people's attention. We take the time and look it up and get it out there so that the stuff doesn't continue to happen behind the doors and with people too busy to look at it.
Yeah, hidden. What's that old term where they do it in public, but it's so secret you never realize it? I don't remember the term.
Well, the best way to hide it is in plain sight, is what I've always heard.
Yeah, something like that,
and do it with a smile. And do it with a smile.
Oh yeah, while they're tattooing.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I won't use my Navy term. Come on.
Yeah. California Critic says, I didn't realize she was a sailor. I said, oh, yeah, she was in the Navy, because we were talking about the hammers to your phone and maybe kicking your computer and using vocabulary that would have to be censored and all kinds of good stuff.
I'm Iowa. If you know what Iowa is, if you ain't ordnance, you ain't shit.
Right.
I was in ordnance. Iowa.
Yep.
Yeah.
You were a powder slinger. You got.
I was something, all right.
Yeah.
Some BB stackers in the Navy. We were called BB stackers.
Yeah. Well, much respect for anybody who can fire the biggest guns.
I can't fire them, but I can load them and I can make some stuff.
Well, there you go. Let me continue on this article. It says CFIUS review of Russian ownership of Citco plants. So here we go. In 2016, Venezuela's state oil company PDVSA secured a loan from Russia's Rosneft by using 49.9% of its shares in Citco as collateral. Should PDVSA default, the refineries will be transferred to the Russian ownership. Uh, it says, what effect such a transfer would have on the U.S. oil market and economy is up for debate, given that it would be in Rosneft's business interest to keep the refineries running efficiently. The U.S. economy may not see any harm. In an unlikely worst case scenario, the Russian company, in retaliation for any measures taken by Washington or its allies, could withhold the supply of gasoline, diesel, and other refined products on a whim. Uh, if they did
Say
that on
that
a,
last part again. Say that last part again, that last sentence.
well, it says, um, given that it would be in Rosneft's best interest to keep the refineries running efficiently, the U.S. economy may not see any harm. In an unlikely worst case scenario, the Russian company, in retaliation for any measures taken by Washington or its allies, could withhold the supply of gasoline, diesel, and other refined products on a whim.
We are so stupid. We are a stupid country to even let that be an option.
Yes.
To let somebody in that could then hijack this from the inside. That's just, that's stupid.
And this is why it's important to bring this stuff up. But it says Citgo now owns roughly 4% of the U.S. refining capacity. These plants going offline would cause prices to spike, particularly in the high demand summer driving season. But lost supply could be offset by higher refined products and products imports or other refineries increasing their runs. Now, some of this we have saved ourselves from. Again, this was an article from 2017, and this particular subject is from 2016. So, what we have done now is increase the production of our own petroleum products, and we are now independently supporting ourselves as far as opposed to being dependent on product coming from overseas. So that already changes the game a little bit.
Yes, that is true.
Let's see, on the rest of the article, it says there would also be questions surrounding what crude the Citgo plant would run under Rosneft's ownership. One is located in Lemont, Illinois, but the other two are on the Gulf Coast. Would they import Russian crude, continue to source volumes from Venezuela, or use U.S. heavy crudes? Currently, the U.S. imports a negligible amount of Russian crude, but does take in roughly 300,000 barrels per day of product. I'm not sure what our intake is today. Um, I don't know if we're still importing that amount to be friendly to these other oil company, other countries, or if we've considerably cut back our imports. I couldn't really find anything on that.
Yeah, I don't know that
DM, sorry, watching and sharing others. Well, that's good. You're multitasking. That's the gift of a power mod. Um, yeah, they repeated that sentence in an worst case scenario. Yeah, that was highlighted underneath it. Um, there, I think well, it's a bit of a long article, but the point I was making with the article is that um, the companies that we are calling American companies have foreign ownership. Some of them, different uh, different estimates of stockholders and share programs, but we we don't own them 100%. I don't think we own anything 100% anymore. Not when it comes to our petroleum and the oil infrastructure. This is interesting. I'm going to read this, but it's going to be a question, and then we'll have kind of the answer based on the last 3 years with President Trump. It says it's unclear whether the Trump administration will try to block Rosneft from taking over Citgo. It is currently mulling potential sanctions against Venezuela, including a ban on U.S. imports of Venezuelan crude. According to Bloomberg, refiners have come out against such a move, arguing that the loss of barrels from the U.S. third largest crude supplier would push up oil and gasoline prices. Venezuela sends roughly 800,000 barrels per day, or more than 20% of the U.S. total crude imports, with Vallejo, the largest U.S. refiner, as a major buyer other than Citgo. So, do we know if President Trump restricted the flow from Venezuela or from Brezhnev?
I don't know. I can Google that on this phone.
As we know, Venezuela has basically deteriorated into garbage. I mean, it was on its way down, but it has put the sack on the front porch and lit it on fire. Now it's waiting for somebody to open the door and stomp on it. I mean, that's where it is right now. It says regarding the possible takeover of Citgo's refineries by Rosneft, the White House could halt the takeover on national security grounds through the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, CFIUS. President General Ford established CFIUS as a monitoring body with an exclusive order as a response to concerns over OPEC investment in the U.S. in the aftermath of the 1973 Arab oil embargo. The 1988 Exxon Florio Amendment sanctioned the president to block foreign investment that were considered harmful to national security. President Ronald Reagan then gave this authority to the CFIUS, making it an investigative body rather than a monitoring committee. Great, another investigating body. Good. Says CFIUS has looked at deals involving refineries before, but has never blocked a sale. Of course not. There's way too much money in oil. All they have to do is pat a pocket, and then they say, all right, I didn't see nothing.
Hello?
I heard that.
Oh, sorry.
Did you find the answer on if he put restrictions on Citgo?
Not yet. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay. Well, while you're looking, I'm going to keep going on this little article here. So CFIUS considerations have though undermined deals to halt foreign ownership in the U.S. In 2005, for instance, China National Offshore Oil Company (CNOOC) decision to drop its proposed $18 billion acquisition of Unocal, UNOCAL, I guess Unocal, in 2005, steamed party from CNOOC's concerns about an impending CFIUS investigation. More recently, last year, Western Digital Core, a U.S. hard drive manufacturer and China-based Singua Unisplendor Corporation, scrapped a deal last year after CFIUS indicated that it would look at the Chinese business buying a 15% stake. We need to stay away from Chinese investment because the rules in China, if you own a company in China, you have to be 50% owned by a Chinese, by their state. And that's how they can backdoor all the secret information and learn trade secrets and all this other stuff. So they just need to be staying away from them.
Well, Trump froze all Venezuelan government assets in a bid to pressure their current president on August 5th.
Okay.
The executive order signed by Trump goes beyond the sanctions imposed in recent months. This one is against Venezuela's state-run oil company, PDVSA,
Okay.
and the country's financial sector, as well as measures against dozens of Venezuelan officials and entities.
Okay. I'm going to put in here just to see what I can find.
Like China and the Russians are still heavily dealing with Venezuela.
Right. What I just threw in here, who owns Citco?
PDVSA is owns Citco.
Right, but who is CDVSA?
They are the Venezuelan state-run oil company.
Okay.
China has a state-run,
Right. U.S. Venezuela battle over control of the Citco oil business. How did we ever get involved? I thought it was Russia. U.S. refiner Citco emerges as key to Venezuela's power battle. So Russia could soon control a U.S. oil company. That is money.com. I'm going to open that, see what it has to say there. Just a question in the chat there. I'm sorry, I've been looking at these articles and stuff. I haven't been paying attention to the people that I'm asking and participating. I apologize. What do you guys think of what we're talking about with the oil? I mean, based on our necessity of oil, and just what do you guys in the chat think of it? While you guys are writing that, I'm going to read this part because I just pulled it up about Russia could soon control U.S. oil company. This article, again, 2017. Good Lord, is there anything that's up to date? Really? This is going back to they're basically talking about the same stuff I just had pulled up on that other article. Let's see. You there, Belinda? Uh-oh. Did I kick her off? Hello?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. I thought I might have kicked you off. Moving things around. China has no business in our oil industry. I totally agree. I don't think any other country has business in our oil industry. Just the fact that OPEC is the godfather, so to speak, of the oil industry. Who the hell gave them permission to decide what we do with oil? All this globalism has got to come to a screeching halt, and we got to figure something out.
Well, wasn't OPEC started by our friendly Arab countries that wanted to control pricing globally?
Yeah, absolutely.
So they would get the most bang for their buck.
It's primarily out of Saudi Arabia. The United Arab Emirates has a lot to do with it, but OPEC is pretty much the Saudi royal family that controls it. Yeah, it says, I think I read this already, but it's a highlighted line from one of the articles. It says, some argue that it is ironic that ownership of downstream facilities by Venezuela and Saudi Arabia, both of whom are OPEC members, has gone under the radar. I'm aware of it. If you know who OPEC is, then you're probably aware of it too. Let's see. So anyway, did you have anything else you wanted to add to oil, or have we completed what we can about it?
I think we've exhausted the subject.
All right, so we're going to kick those articles off of here now because no need to go back to them. Now, this is the that basically concludes our Who Owns America, and this is the next half of the show here. What do we got here? Got 15 minutes, I think. So, want to go over a couple of things that are happening in our news today and yesterday, maybe even the day before. First one is feds are close to deciding whether to indict CNN analyst Andrew McCabe. Why don't they just say criminal? Why do they got to give him such a big title? It says the Justice Department is close to deciding whether to indict Andrew McCabe for the former FBI deputy director and newly minted CNN analyst on charges of lying to the FBI during a media leak investigation. What bothers me is, why is it taking so long to decide if we're going to indict somebody that the evidence that he broke the law it's visible for all to see? Everybody knows that he lied during a hearing in front of the House Oversight Committee, and they know that according to other FBI members, including Comey, that he lied. So why does there have to be a decision on if you're going to prosecute or indict, rather than not going to prosecute, you're going to indict?
I have no idea. When you think about what happened to poor Flynn,
Yeah.
And that man is destitute and ruined, and it happened in my mind, a nanosecond.
Right.
For Washington's speediness, that was one of the fastest moving things I ever did see.
Right.
And I just this guy should be in the same position. Not that I think Flynn was railroaded.
Absolutely.
This guy should be thrown under us. This guy should just be. And that's where you get fake news from. When you have these people using their position to try and control a false narrative, and their head gets too big.
Right.
This is what our country has to deal with.
Well, the government can be brutal. They can leave you destitute, and I know that personally. My own dealings with them, but when they have you in the crosshairs, you're gone. You're done. You will not recover.
Yeah.
But it says McCabe's attorneys met twice last week with Deputy Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen regarding the investigation of McCabe, according to the New York Times. Well, again, what the hell are they deciding? If we indict him, are we going to prosecute him, or are we going to let this just slide to save the reputation of the FBI, or how are we going to work this? I'm sure those were the questions being tossed across the table.
Well, I don't understand why CNN, even though they have, if you read the reports correctly, they have absolutely no viewership as far as a global channel goes. And I don't know what CNN, I don't know the powers behind CNN.
Well,
they want to keep these idiots on the air.
They buy viewership, literally. They pay the airports to play their shows in the airports, even with the volume down or whatever. Nobody has to look at it, but as long as it's being broadcast, then it's considered viewership. So their ratings are below Nickelodeon, and I think even Douglas Ducote, with his viewership of his shows or his reports, some of his exceed the viewership of reports from CNN, and that's really good, but it's also surprising.
Well, who funds it? Who keeps them on the air? Who keeps paying all these talking heads?
The global cabal, because they've got to keep trying to ride their propaganda wave. If they let this falter, they lose. So they have to keep driving it, even though I've said it several times. It's like they're holding a revolver up to their own head and saying, if anybody does anything, we're going to get it. And it's just really stupid. The last part of it, it says the 21-year FBI veteran was fired on March 16, 2018, after the Bureau of Office and Professional Responsibility and Justice Department Inspector General determined that that he displayed a lack of candor. I hate their code words. Why can't they say the bastard lied at least 4 times in interviews about the authorization of leaks to the media in October 2016?
If you got to authorize a leak, once you just come out and say it, what the heck is all that about?
Well, when he first got interviewed, he said, no, 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 I didn't do it. And then when they started putting pressure on him, he said, yeah, well, I did it, but it was just in passing and conversation on my way out. So that makes a difference. Um, it says the Inspector General referred McCabe to the Justice Department for prosecution. The case is being handled by prosecutors in Washington, D.C. Oh, well, that explains a lot. McCabe sued the Justice Department and FBI over his firing. August 8th, McCabe has claimed he did not lie to the FBI. It's on video. He also claimed he was fired due to political pressure from President Donald Trump. And let me explain something here. The only reason this little bastard threw a lawsuit at the DOJ is because when they decide to hand down this indictment, he can say, along with his lawyers, well, they're doing this as a political hit job to come after me because I filed suit against them. Not that that'll make any difference, but all they have to do is get it out into the public ear, and the people, some of them just suck that crap up. Everything they hear, they suck up like a sponge.
Yeah, I haven't learned that trick yet.
Yeah, I tend to have stuff bounce off. It says CNN on Friday hired McCabe as a law enforcement analyst. That was a really good idea. A case against McCabe could face some headwinds, according to the Times report. A grand jury witness in the investigation has provided testimony that could undermine the government's case, according to the newspaper. You mean they got a plant into the Supreme Court or into the grand jury? Say it isn't so. Uh, it says Trump and his conservative supporters have been heavily critical of McCabe. Yeah, because he's a criminal. So I guess we're supposed to be, supporting and understanding of a criminal in our own Justice Department. Get out of here with that garbage.
They had Kerry, they had Clinton, they had Cocaine Biden Jr., whatever his little thing. I mean, they weren't in the Justice Department, but they all filled positions or one step off positions within they weren't in the Justice Department, but they were in the government committing their crimes.
Right.
It just seems like if you're a criminal, go become part of the U.S. government.
Yeah.
Get away with it, and life will be rosy.
Yeah, we have two parties. It's a two-party system. It's called Republicans and criminals. Oh, I mean, yeah, I can't think of the other one. Anyway, so I think I'm pretty close. Yes, thank you, DM, for posting my headings. I appreciate that. CNN hiring ex-FBI while MSNBC hires CIA. Yeah, Sandra M. McGibbon said that. See a connection there? I mean, if you're getting your information from the CIA anyway, you might as well have them working directly for you. The 4 a.m. talking points come from Brussels, and everybody toes the line, or they get absolutely destroyed. This is, I want to get, what are we at now? 54. We got 6 minutes. So I want to jump to another article. I got about 10 more articles open. I was prepared tonight, but this one I found interesting. And it says the Western Journal slammed the New York Times last week for publishing what it called an attempt to smear the conservative website in a highly lengthy feature that eventually required Gray Lady to issue multiple corrections. This seems to be a recurring pattern. Um, my example of this was that they basically take a whole bunch of dirty, sweaty socks and they throw them at the wall locker and see which one sticks. And, that's how they get their news out there. And then when they do their retractions, they might go to page 11 underneath the uh, proctological investigations of, doctors in that field, and it might be just a little one or two sentences at the bottom of that article. Well, we may have misspoke. No, you lied. Sandra Ann McGibbon has subscribed to you, Belinda, so that's cool. You're getting a subscriber base too. That's cool.
How did I get that?
Because you have a YouTube that you opened so that you could be partners with me on this disabled vets perspective. So they're going to subscribe to you.
Well, alrighty then. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No offense. I just
don't worry, you'll learn this stuff. Anywho, it says the Times published on Thursday an extensive feature that explored how big tech pummeled traffic to the Western Journal and other partisan news sites because of efforts to crack down on clickbait and disinformation. That's I think the pot calling the kettle black. So it's so much projection. And if you guys don't know what projection is, it's whatever I'm doing, I'm going to blame on you because I don't want you looking at me, and that is what's going on. Man says he witnessed CNN host Don Lemon's alleged assault. Okay, that's a headline. We've already been over Don Lemon. Ugh. Anyway, so there's so many of them, and they seem to be cracking. These people you got that one chick on there talking about wants to burn down the Republican Party. Every time you turn around, they're calling for violence. Huh? Yeah, step up. And but they won't. They'll go after the soft targets like they always do. Let's see. The piece said the Western Journal, based outside Phoenix, curates reality, has no Washington bureau, and rarely dispatches reporters into the world to gather news firsthand. The Times admitted the Western Journal was not quite a household name, but still enlisted Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter Nick Confessor to help investigate the conservative news outlet because of its Facebook reach. Speaking of Facebook, Epoch Times got banned from Facebook. So the more truth you speak, the more risk there is of being kicked out.
And as far as clickbait goes, if you click on any salacious story, I swear, on Facebook, it's just BS.
Right.
It's just somebody's idea, propaganda, Democrat, liberal, socialist, Republican. It's just...
Yeah.
It's not real. I don't trust any of it. I don't trust any of it. I swear, I just need to go back to, I used to get 3 newspapers a day. And, one came every other day. But I need to go back to newspapers, but then I don't think I could trust that anymore either. Right.
Well, we are closing up on our hour, and I know that just flew by. But I want to take a minute to thank our mods for the work you guys do. You guys are great. Thank you to all of our visitors who came to join us on this live feed. Miss Belinda, thank you so much. Glad we got you on the phone. Nobody can prevent the weather. All we can do is learn how to adapt to it. I think we did that using the phone tonight. So I think it has done pretty well. Did you want to say anything on your way out?
I said I hope it was clear and not too garbly.
Oh, no, it's actually, the microphone's picking it up quite nicely. I'm hearing it in my headset just as if you're sitting in the room with me. So it's all good. But anyhow, so that's what we've got for tonight. Thank you again for joining us. Like I said, next week on Tuesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern, we will start doing our weekend review, the most salacious headlines that we can find, and we will be it. It's going to be interesting because this week I was paying attention to them because I was kind of thinking of this ahead of time, and I was thinking, wow, we're going to have some material. So we are going to rip them to shreds with this stuff, and I mean, we're going to use their own words to do it. Thank you, DM. Anyway, so until Thursday night, I will be joined by Drop It Like It's Scott, and we will be doing our political headlines or political chat. The show with no structure and no coordination. And until then, we'll see you next time and stay in the fight.
Bye, everybody.